Hello and welcome to the 2024 Sao Paulo E-Prix pre-race press conference here, joined by Florian Modlinger from Heuer Porsche, Phil Charles from Penske and Tommaso Volpe from Nissan. Welcome, gentlemen. Good to be back in Brazil. Just a few words from each of you on being back for Formula E's second visit. Start with you, Florian.
Yeah, very happy to go racing again now after the break and to race in Brazil with the enthusiastic fans. We are really looking forward to this.
Cool.
Yeah, it's an amazing place to come to. I really enjoyed the steak, first of all, so that's great. It's a great track, and just the passion here is just amazing. So yeah, really great place to be.
Yeah, absolutely. Brazil is one of the key markets for motorsport, so I think the race here is absolutely great. It's also an important market for us as Nissan, so we're super happy to have a race here.
Excellent stuff. Now, Florian, starting with you, not as prolific of a start as this time last season, one win, but the competition, especially around you, looks very, very strong. More teams this season potentially in the mix. Do you expect it to be harder to fight for a championship this season than it was last season?
I think in Formula E every season it's hard, and we do our best. We had last year a tremendous start, and this year the Porsche 996 Electric had 2 wins already. We won the race in Mexico with Pascal, and then Jake for Andretti won the first race in Styria. We struggled a bit more in Styria, but you see how close the competition is. If you're in qualifying only half a tenth behind, you're already dropping maybe out of the duels. And especially in the first 3 races, overtaking was difficult, and this means we could also not show our pure race performance with the energy management, and could not progress as good as we did in some races last year. And I expect here a different race than the first 3.
With the fact of having 7 different drivers in 3 races so far, achieving that all-important consistency, which as we know is what wins championships in Formula E, do you feel that this championship is getting closer to being one where it's much, much harder to bounce back from those less desirable results? You know, someone like Cassidy with 3 podiums already, you know, he can afford a DNF potentially this weekend without really scarpering his championship.
Yeah, it's tough, but we had only 3 races. A lot can happen, and you need also to see how he approached and how he arrived at the podiums. His teammate helped him also a bit with his aggressive driving in one race, and there you need to see all these circumstances.
Okay, and finally, Florian, we've seen a very tough start to the season for Antonio as well. Can you offer any words on where his confidence is at the moment, and do you think this could be the weekend that is the venue of a big Da Costa comeback?
I hope so, and this has to be. When you look at his qualifying performance last year, he put it on P2. Was fighting with the 3 Jaguars nearly the whole race until he did a small mistake. Then finally came in P4, and the track fits him. The track fits his driving style, and we hope clearly and do the best to have a good result for him here.
Moving on to you, Phil. Now, I'm glad we're here because this is a new team, arguably the biggest technical move in the championship's history. Are you able to share with us the reasons behind the move, how it came about, and also your role with Penske?
Yeah, of course I can. Well, first of all, it would have been a bit more interesting if you'd got James Barkley up here as well. It might have been a bit more spicy then. But in all seriousness, there are 2 main reasons why I swapped the shirt. The first one is John-Eric Byrne, and the second one is Jay Penske. Jev tried to get hold of me, grabbed me, and said, "You've got to come." And then Jay picked up the phone, and he was just really amazingly persuasive. He kind of stands for everything that I stand for. He wants to go out there, make things better. He's desperate to win races, and so ultimately, that's why I'm here. Great drivers, good people, and Jay Penske giving me a really big pull.
And just a bit more on your role within the team, how that might unfold.
Sure. So I come here as deputy team principal. It's a role that's got quite a good amount of freedom. So being in charge of a lot of the team as a whole directly, so good kind of input into the race engineering side, but also a little bit more of a rounded view as well, some of the finance, some of the other bits involved with the organisation of the team.
Okay. In terms of position of Penske in the championship this season, what position do you think that they're in or you're in? Already a podium so far, and there's signs that you can be fighting at the top. Do you feel that's the case?
Absolutely, and I would say that, of course. But they're in second in the championship before I arrived, and that's a great start. But I think the main thing that I've learned straight away is that there are really a large number of very, very good people. There's a really great backbone in the team. Perhaps if you look at it as a whole, there's a large percentage of the team that won back-to-back championships not that long ago at all. And that was probably something that was really good and a bit tricky for them, because when you win and you're that prolific like that, you can start to get a little bit closed in your view, perhaps a little bit conservative. Well, you've got me turn up now, my tail's up, I'm going to inject some new ideas, and I'm enthusiastic that we're going to go and really deliver some big results. So I can't tell you how long it will take, but I can tell you I'm ready for the challenge, and it's a really good team, a good backbone of people. So yeah.
Looking forward to it. And finally with you, Phil, just going into this race ahead of us tomorrow, less energy to play with than last season, longer in attack mode, and a strong likelihood of that return of this peloton style of racing that we saw a lot last season. What do you expect to be the biggest challenge for teams tomorrow?
Well, actually, you just summed it up really, really well there, but you've kind of picked on the three really big items. Probably the biggest one in that is you mentioned peloton. As teams now, we've all started to understand how to go about this style of racing. We've evolved a lot since last year. And what does that mean? What it means is that as a group, we'll probably slow the race down to start with, even though we've got a bit less energy and the attacks are longer. That's a different parameter, but we'll slow the race down so that the energy target goes up. As the energy target goes up, it's more difficult to overtake. So if I'm at the front now, I don't want to lead, but if I am leading, I'll slow you down, and that way I'm more likely to hold on to my position and score bigger points because it becomes more difficult to overtake. So the way that we'll go about the racing, more evolved, people are more likely to play that game, and what that does is it means that a large chunk of the race will be at a higher energy target, will be closer to flat out. That then has consequences. That means it's harder on the tyres, it's harder on the powertrain, it's harder on the battery, and this is a really hot event, high ambience. So all of those things we're going to have to really watch really carefully for. So I think it's going to, for you guys, it's going to be a really exciting race. For me, I like a nice easy one at the front, but it could be a little bit trickier.
Yeah, very insightful. Thanks very much, Phil. Moving on to you, Tommaso. Coming off the back of a very good result in Diriyah, pole position and podium for Oliver Rowland, it seems as if he settled back into life at Nissan very, very quickly.
Yes, actually it was surprising, but to be honest with you, he had a very strong race pace also in Mexico in the first race in Diriyah. We mistaken the qualifying in the first two races, and then because we tried something new. Actually, we were strong in qualifying last year, and we were weaker during the race. And funnily enough, the first two races we were weak in qualifying. But then for the second race in Diriyah, we changed something, going back to some solutions from season 9. So that's why we qualified much better. And then we realized that with a better race pace, Oli could still keep podium result. It was difficult to fight with the Jaguar cars, but it was absolutely a good result. But again, his race pace was good already in the first two races. It's just that we made a strong mistake in qualifying.
Can you ask him what the changes in season 9
Now, as you said there about the difficulties in the first two races, the points that were scored in the third race obviously well needed for both Oliver and Sasha. Just to say, lots of talk about the Nissan powertrain, ran by both yourself and McLaren, bringing the fight to the Jaguars, the Porsches, the Andrettis, the Envisions. Do you feel competitive against those teams above, and could we see even more success this weekend in Brazil?
Well, definitely I hope it was not an isolated case, and I think the gap with Jaguar and Porsche is still there. To be honest, it's difficult to fill the gap when the hardware is the same. You can recover as much as you can on the software and control systems, but in general, they do as well. So it's at some point it's very tough. So definitely our ambition is to go as close as possible, but I don't see a huge change of values this year. To be honest.
It seems as if the teams that master their strategy here is the real chance for those teams maybe with less competitive powertrains to score big this weekend, or at least get up there in points with the style of racing. Do you think, are you certain this will be the case? Or do you think there's a few surprises in store with how this circuit might end up racing?
What we were saying, the strategy is going to be key. Battery temperature might be a challenge, so I think everything will be more dictated by qualifying, obviously, because if the best cars don't qualify at the top, then everything will be more dynamic. But if the best cars qualify at the top, which doesn't happen all the time, so it doesn't happen in this race as well, it's going to be tough for the others to really fight at the top positions. Having said that, obviously we will do our best and we hope to score points with both cars.
Okay. So I want to borrow your technical mind for a second. Thinking about strategy, it seems to me that with the way this race might unfold, there's going to be a point somewhere in the race where everyone wants to be at exactly the same place at exactly the same time, but there's not room for 22 cars to be in that position. How do you manage that as a team?
Well, that's a really good question, and that comes down to a lot of your preparation. It comes down to a lot of training of the team and the driver. You've got to recognise that the race is a moving target. So you mentioned it fantastic. There's a point where there's an inflection point where you go from I'm slowing, I'm holding, now I need to position myself ready for the lockout phase. That's this kind of hockey stick shape. That window there, as we mentioned before, everyone's starting to understand the racing more. That's getting narrower and narrower, and it's getting more and more. You need to get your elbows out because we're all trying to go forward at the same time. So there's two things at play. One is you've got to give the drivers as much information as you can. They've got to know when they're getting to that point. And then the second one is that they've got to be able to navigate themselves on the way forward. And having gathered enough energy before that helps because you can use that more to go forward. But there's also a lot of the driver input there as well. They come alive at that point, and you can only help them so much. You can be a spotter, but you can't drive the car for them. So you educate, you help, but then it's in their hands as well in that phase.
Very exciting. And one final question for you, Florian. We've seen in the first three races, attack mode was very crucial to having a successful strategy to go on and get podium and race wins. Similarly with qualifying, whereas it feels like, well, certainly with qualifying, it might not be as crucial to be right at the front, apart from with the points, extra points of course. But with attack mode, how might that change the way that you approach the race?
Here it will be different because you have to consider several things. You need to consider when you take the attack mode because it will have an impact on the battery temperature, one thing. The second thing, what Phil described really well, is that at the beginning you will have a lower energy target. This means making positions and progressing will be easily possible. And at the later stage when they try to go flat out or close to flat out, the overtaking is less. But on these long straights where it's then relatively power sensitive, with a late attack mode, you can still overtake. And that will be the challenge. We have to place the attack mode to not risk too much by making the moves late or taking it late and suffering with the battery. And all these parameters you need to consider.
This has been an exceptionally technical and insightful press conference. Thank you very much, gentlemen. Chance for us